Something happened earlier this month. Something I was not expecting since I posted my first video about Genshin just over a year ago. Yep, thanks to all of your support, I've hit the 10k subscriber mark on YouTube. What you may not know is that I started this channel in 2010, and since then I just randomly upload videos whenever I felt like making one, about a wide assortment of games. And in 15 years I gained like 50 subscribers. Yeah, not a very inspiring story. So when I posted this video in January 2025, I was expecting it to be just another one-off, and my next video would be about some other random game next year. But then, you all in the Genshin community said, hey, that was interesting, make more Genshin videos. And I said, okay, I can do that. Over a year later, here we are. Alright, that's enough about me. Let's get to the actual content of this video. I don't want to just make a low-effort video to celebrate. I want to make something that's actually entertaining. And who doesn't like a tier list video? A tier list video ranking other Genshin videos. No, not other people's videos. That would cause way too much drama. I'm going to tier list my own Genshin videos. I know how it may sound, and no, the intent is not just to promote old videos. On the contrary, I feel like some of my videos actually did not stand the test of time, or at the very least there are changes that I would make to them if that was a thing you could do with YouTube videos. So as I rank them, I'll be correcting some information in them as well as providing some additional commentary on each of their topics, and hopefully you enjoy. First up, my first Genshin video, a discussion about power creep in Genshin Impact. D tier. This was a hot topic at the time I made it, which is partially why I wanted to make it. Mawika was about to release and everyone was saying that Genshin Impact was finally breaking the game balance they'd maintained for 4 years because she was heads over tails the most powerful character the game had ever seen. But as someone who dabbled in Honkai Impact 3rd and saw what true power creep is, where every new character is somehow the best in the game while simultaneously also already power crept the moment they released by the next character that was just revealed, I felt like power creep was really not a thing in Genshin. But that's changed. This video is now utterly obsolete. But I didn't put it in D tier just because the game has changed a year after I made it. No, it wasn't that great of a meta-analysis even when it came out. A lot of the characters that were in this middle no-change tier, I just threw in there because I don't play them and didn't really know whether they had changed. And even for the older characters I did play, I started Genshin during 3.4, so I didn't even play those characters when they were the top meta. So I really was not qualified to discuss how the meta status of those characters changed between 36 starring the Spiral Abyss in 1.1 and doing the same in 5.1. I could have done it objectively by looking back at Spiral Abyss character usage rates through the years, or team DPS calcs during those years, and compared them to the DPS requirements of the Abyss, but instead I was just feels crafting. I wanted to make a video saying Genshin had no power creep, and I only put in the effort to get me to that conclusion. In my defense, I at least went and recorded my own gameplay footage for every clip, but it wasn't that great of gameplay. And as a final knock, the video encoding quality is kinda bad too. I think my rendering settings were not set up properly, plus I think some quality was lost when I uploaded it because YouTube re-encoded it. I actually re-rendered and uploaded the video again, deleting the first one after it had some views, hoping the second one would be better, but it wasn't really. But like I said, I had no expectation of becoming a Genshin creator at the time I made this video. It was just an idea I had that I felt like making a video for. There's probably a lesson in there somewhere for any aspiring YouTube creators out there. Your videos don't have to be perfect, you just need to make them, and ask yourself, why would someone watch this? And if you have a good answer to that question, the YouTube algorithm will take care of the rest. Next, my second video, a video that none of you watched. A video about the game mechanic of input buffering and why Genshin needs it. The thing is, as I was making the video and recording demonstration footage to show what I meant, I realized that Genshin actually does have input buffering. It's just inconsistent. Still though, it should be consistent. So it's still worth mentioning that the game mechanics still need some work for the game to feel better to play. Despite the fact that the video is not even 6 minutes long, it took an exorbitant amount of effort to make, because I had to build every single one of these timer timelines from scratch inside DaVinci Resolve, because I was not aware of any better way to do it. And that was doubly a problem, because Resolve gets exponentially more laggy with every single overlay you try to put on the screen, and these timers were many overlays combined. This one segment with Raiden in the background took over an hour to render. So I'm putting this in B B tier. Personally, I think the content is A tier, but the abysmal effort to payoff ratio really hurts it for me. I could have done more if I wasn't so frustrated with the technical difficulties. And now for my most successful video yet, the Beginner's Guide, slightly disguised behind a clickbait title to get more than just beginners to click on it. This is actually the first Genshin video I wanted to make, because while watching some streamers try out the game, I realized Genshin does have some pitfalls that can negatively impact your first playthrough. So I always wanted to just make a video they could watch to help them out.
Hey, can we still try for my big titty blonde lady?
But because it was so much work, I ended up making those other two first. I'd call this A tier. I stand by most of the advice in it, though not all of it. If I were to make another one, some of the advice would certainly change, being that it's been over a year. In fact, I probably will make an updated one in the future, but I don't want to do it too soon, as I'd want a good bit of the video to be different, even if only some of the advice changes. Otherwise, I'd feel like I'm just rehashing content. But even right after it came out, there were corrections I wanted to make, and I did. That leads into the next video, the Beginner's Guide Part 2. Like I said, I had some corrections and additions to make that I thought warranted a follow-up video. However, being a Part 2 is automatically a bit of a detriment. As with the first, I stand by the advice in this video, even more so in fact, but I'd still rank it at B tier, because it doesn't really stand on its own. It kinda needs the first video to go with it. If the two of them were combined into one video, it would be an S tier video, but that's not how it happened. I'll refrain from giving a bunch of corrections and updated opinions on the content of these two videos, because as I hinted before, once I collect enough such updates, I'll probably make a new up-to-date guide. Let's move on to a video where I actually have more to say. My first lore-focused video, my wildest theories. I wanted to present the craziest theories I could think of that could still maybe possibly be true. Unfortunately, as you might expect, two of them are in the trash. One of the theories was that the twins were actually a single person when they arrived on Teyvat and got split into two people by something here. But we've since gotten more references to the fact that they are actually twins, not to mention Traveler entering the spaceship, which would obviously only have one hibernation pod if the theory were true, and you'd think they'd mention that. So that theory is debunked. Next is the Wild Paimon theory, where she's actually the fifth shade, but also a sinner, and basically the character responsible for all of the events in the entire game's history. Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous even when the video came out. The first thing that debunked it, to me, is Rhyndaughtr. When it was revealed that she is now both sinner and shade, that was the end of any theory where any other character was also sinner and shade, because that would just be bad story. But we've got so many better theories for Paimon now that this one isn't even worth listening to. So that just leaves the last one hanging by a thread, which is that the Tsaritsa is already dead, and only a puppet remains that is being controlled by Pierro. That one is still up in the air. Given that we've gotten more Tsaritsa lore, it's getting less and less likely, but until we actually meet her, I can keep coping. The video is C tier, because the theories are mostly debunked, not even a year after it came out. But if it turns out that the Tsaritsa is dead, that call from left field would put it into like B or A tier, but not now. Next up is another video no one watched, and I don't blame you because it was specifically about one limited time combat event. But guess what? You should watch it because it's S tier. The thing is, the video doesn't just talk about the event, but Genshin Impact combat design in general. And if I can be frank, the people who need to watch it the most are Genshin's combat developers, because the suggestions I give for how to make combat events better is absolutely peak. Some of that advice could also be implemented in the permanent endgame combat modes as well. I'm looking at you, Stygian Onslaught. Then again, the thing I say that applies to that mode is the same opinion that 99.9% of endgame players also have. But still, there's more than just that. Let's move on to the next big video, the Team Building Guide, Part 1 technically. This was going to be my masterpiece, but as I was making it, it was clearly going to be insanely long, so I split it up into two videos. The pair of them were going to be the ultimate guide to Genshin combat, telling players literally everything they could possibly need to know to master both building and playing their teams, and dealing the most damage possible. The problem is, Genshin's combat mechanics are actually quite deep, so a universal guide would necessarily have to be extremely information dense, and yeah, this was. And not only was part 1 an information overload, but it was mostly a mechanics overview, which probably made it hard to absorb for most people. It's like having someone read half of a calculus book to you without stopping and being like, okay, so you've got a good grasp on all this now, right? So with all that considered, I'm putting it in B tier. It's still all valuable information, but it's supposed to be a guide, and I'm not sure how much it actually guided players. Next, let's look at Part 2, the Team Archetype breakdown. This video had a similar issue to Part 1 in that it was pretty information dense. However, having it split into distinct teams with demonstrations no doubt made it a lot easier to absorb and probably more fun to watch. Plus, I know earlier I said being a Part 2 is an automatic detriment, but I made sure that it stood on its own and didn't require you to watch the first video first. I also put in exorbitant amount of effort recording clips of each and every little thing I wanted to show, as well as into the overlays. And as I mentioned earlier, part of that effort was dealing with how horribly DaVinci Resolve handles overlays. I literally had to render the overlays out as their own separate images and videos, then add them back into the main video in order for Resolve to play them back at more than 1 frame per second. So with all that, is this an S tier video? Unfortunately, no. I can only put it into A tier because of 3 main issues. First, I mislabel Hypercarry as an archetype when it's not really. A Hypercarry is a character that deals almost all of a team's damage. It doesn't mean a team where you just give one character all the buffs, because firstly, that's almost every team. And secondly, most of the ways to do that are by utilizing the other actual archetypes explained in the video. And since it's the first thing in the video, it literally started by confusing people. The second issue is that I simply forgot some team archetypes, even some that I was planning on putting into the video, like Microwave, but somewhere in the script writing process I removed them and forgot to add them back in. And the third main issue is that it was rushed. Yes, despite taking almost 4 months to make, it was still rushed, because right at the tail end of editing is when Nodcry and Lunar Reactions came out. I didn't want the video to take 5 months to make, which it would have if I was going to add in explanations of Lunar Reactions, so I specifically tried to release it as fast as possible so that I could use Lunar Reactions just came out as an excuse for why I didn't break them down. So as good as the video is, and despite the daunting amount of quality information in it, it could still have been better. And finally, the last guide I made before transitioning to lore videos, an unofficial part 3 to those previous 2 videos, the Rotations Guide. I originally wanted to break down rotations even more in the first 2 videos, but they were just so long that I ended up cutting most of that out. So I made a 3rd video just for all that cut content, and I think I did a pretty good job. The problem is, building a rotation from scratch is pretty complicated, and even changing one character or one artifact set or one weapon can lead to you having to tweak your rotation. So trying to make a general guide to all rotations is barely possible. So the best I could do is pick out a few teams that had the most different rotational mechanics between them and hope that covered all the bases. I'm sure there are better teams I could have picked, but I went with the theme of teams that were once the best, and just went from there. Plus, these overlays took as much effort to make as all the others I've been complaining about, and I was sick of making them after the first 4 teams. So if I wanted to drive myself crazy, I could have gone even harder breaking down more teams and made an S tier video. But at a certain point, I decided that's gotta be good enough, and A tier is good enough. At this point, I was mostly out of ideas for guides, and was trying to decide what other kinds of videos to make. Well, I'm pretty into Genshin's lore, so how about I start making videos on that? So for my first serious lore video, I decided to go big and cover tons of lore all at once. And since most of my subscribers at this point were probably newer players or players more interested in combat, I decided to make it a sort of introduction video to Genshin's lore. Thus, Genshin's Unsolved Mysteries was born. I decided to cover all the parts of lore that were the most interesting to me, while avoiding spoilers as much as possible as a favor to the newer players. Thing is, I don't know if that spoiler-light approach was helpful or not. If we take players who are not caught up in the story and don't want spoilers, but still watch a big lore video as Group A, and we take players who are fully caught up and want to dive into the lore and are annoyed when I skirt around a topic to avoid spoilers as Group B, I'm pretty sure Group B outweighs Group A. But I made the video for Group A. It is what it is. Before I rate it, let's talk about lore developments since I made it that are relevant to these mysteries. We got an update on the first Angel. She was trapped in Amsvartnir for a long time, but at some point she escaped and went north. So we'll definitely get some more lore on her and the Voyager. For the Gnostic Chorus, we didn't get any direct update, but we did hear a parable about a primordial human who was created by the God of Light in its own likeness, which was then stolen by a King of Darkness. It's somewhat similar to the Gnostic Chorus story, so there could be a connection there. As far as the Traveler's twin, we still haven't seen them since I made the video, but we did find the ship, and it had 2 empty hibernation pods, so the theory I presented in the video is debunked. 10th Harbinger we still don't know, but we did learn about the Hex and Circle Mage J, aka Ivanovna N, and how she was a major player in Snezhnaya back when the Fatui was starting up. So there's a possibility that it's been her all along, and no one told us because she's been dead for hundreds of years. But it's still just a theory. Paimon? We still don't know anything, but we have a bunch more possibilities to build theories from, with the potential of her being an AI that is connected to the Heavenly Principles, the Traveler spaceship, or both. So for the rating, I'm giving it A tier, because I think the spoiler considerations hurt it more than helped it, especially because there are more mysteries I would have mentioned, but even introducing them would have spoiled things, so I left them out. I'm looking at you, Zhongli. Now, the beginner's guide might be my most viewed video to date, but the one with the most successful initial release was the next one, the Luna 4 lore video. Part of its success could be because Luna 4 was such a lore-heavy and story-relevant patch, and another part could be the provocative thumbnail that many people specifically commented on. Either way, since it's a lore video, let's go over how some of the things in the video aged. This was where I first mentioned the idea that Asmodee could have learned some things after imprisoning the twins and moving their spaceship, and then chose to help them. Given what we learned in the Temple of Space, I think that idea is still going strong. As far as Dottore and the glitch ending, Sandrone being the secret new playable character, and anything about Paimon, well, we still don't have answers on them. And as for my big theory about how the spaceship relates to the Heavenly Principles, well, we still haven't gotten any lore to prove or disprove it, and we probably won't until the end of Snezhnaya. But the idea that the Heavenly Principles is our spaceship AI and that Paimon is the disconnected idea association module is looking more enticing every day, which, to be clear, wasn't my theory in this video, but whatever. That said, the theories I did propose, like Descenders being from Traveler's Homeworld, and the Samsaras being tied to genetic vaults, are probably best forgotten, except I just brought them up again. Anyway, as for the rating, honestly, this rating is less about the video and its content, and more about my channel as a whole. Like I said, this video had by far the most successful release, and thus, it was the video that shaped the future of the channel and made me decide to focus almost entirely on lore. Before this, I wasn't really sure which direction the channel would go, and videos probably would have been fewer and further between than they have been since this video. So, because of the impact it had on the channel, I'm putting it in S tier. Next, the Genshin Dark Forest Hypothesis. This was meant to follow up on some of the things I presented in the previous video, namely the story of how and why the Heavenly Principles and others may have come to Teyvat. The crux of it was the Heavenly Principles arriving on a pioneer vessel and setting up Teyvat as an isolated island to hide from the dark forest of the universe, and luring other similar pioneer vessels here to steal their resources. This is different from what seems to be the most popular theory, which is that the Heavenly Principles was the twins' ship AI, and sent them off so it could prepare Teyvat, or perhaps betrayed them. At this point, I'm honestly leaning more toward abandoning my theory and siding with everyone else, and I might make a video in the future to give my specific flavor of that theory. Funnily enough, I gave a lot of my potential theory in this video, condensed into a short paragraph. As for other things in the video, I do still like my idea of Nibelung's origin with regard to Teyvat, which we'll probably never know one way or another. The idea of the Dark Forest in Genshin is seeming a little less likely as time goes on and we learn more about other worlds in the Genshin universe. There's definitely a force out there destroying worlds, but it doesn't seem as dangerous as I made it sound in the video. Also in the previous video, I mentioned my ideas behind Asmodee switching sides, and in this video I expand upon it even more at the end. Everything else, we haven't gotten any new lore to swing one way or another. Overall, this video was less based on lore from in the game, and more of a narrative about my personal idea for the back backstory of Teyvat and the Genshin universe. As for the rating, I'm putting it in B tier, because even though I think it's a fine video, the claims I make in it are a little light on evidence. So much so that I don't even stand by some of them. Plus, it was only kind of focused on the Dark Forest premise, and the end went off on multiple tangents. Next, my video on what the Abyss is, which I made literally right before Alice told us what the Abyss is, and it totally debunked my theory. If all this video was a theory, then it would be D tier, because it's not like it was a bad video, it just wouldn't be worth watching. However, thankfully, I spent the first half of the video just reviewing lore from the game regarding the Abyss, and that's all still fine. Also, my theory was that the Abyss was an intergalactic civilization dominating the universe, and if we assume that the Andromeda Empire is real, which was mentioned in both Vera's Melancholy and the Temple of Space World Quest, then there actually is an intergalactic civilization in the Genshin universe, but it's not clear whether it's bent on universal domination. Either way, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with the Abyss. So, with half of the video worth watching, I'll bump it up into C tier, and let's just move on to the second attempt at an Abyss video. Right after the Luna 5 event, in which Alice gave us the Hexen Circle's definition of the Abyss, I decided I may as well suck it up and make a video to correct the video I just made. So I guess we can call this the Luna 5 lore video. In this video, I presented some possible interpretations of the Genshin universe and Teyvat that fit Alice's lore drop. Namely, that Irminsul controlling all of the knowledge of Teyvat and using it to calculate the future effectively allows it to control fate. In other words, it removes free will from the people of Teyvat so that they cannot make choices, because the unchosen fates would otherwise become the Abyss. No choices means no Abyss. And that's how Irminsul and the Leylines protect the planet from the Abyss that is a threat to every other world in the universe. At least until beings like Nibelung brought it here. That might not be how Irminsul actually works, but it seems reasonable so far. I think the video still holds up, not that that says much since we've only gotten one more patch since it came out. I'm tempted to throw it into A tier, but since this is basically just a correction video to the previous video, I'll stick it in B tier. We're getting really recent now with the Chasm video. It's an old region, but Sibai's release gave us a whole new history for it, so I wanted to give it a full revisit. And I think it went really well. I learned some things myself while making it, like the strange mention of Ermin in Legend of the Shattered Halberd, and my theory at the end I didn't even think of until I was halfway done making the video. That theory being the idea that part of Nibelung remains, and that's what's at the bottom of the chasm, and perhaps the Celestial Nails are meant to seal him away, with the suppression of the Abyss being a side effect, and that the domain in the chasm's bed is a realm of consciousness created by him, similar to Aizen Makoto's realms of consciousness. It's quite a claim, and I hope we find out the truth, even if I'm completely wrong. Overall, I'm not really sure what I could have done better, and if I do reviews of previous areas and quests, they will probably go just like this, so I'm putting it in S tier. But as with the previous video, it hasn't really been long enough to say how the content has aged. We're almost at the end of the list, as we now have the video that I released right before this, the Luna 6 lore video regarding the Temple of Space. Like I said with the past two videos, it hasn't been long enough to say how the content has aged. That said, I can tell you right now that I wouldn't put it in S tier, because within days I had to pin a comment with corrections. I also could have listed off even more of the lore references in the quest, but I chose not to because most of them didn't really add any new information. It was just, hey, remember this shrine maiden from thousands of years ago? Remember Enkanomiya?
He just made the reference. Remember this? Remember that?
Which is cool and all, I just didn't want to pad the video runtime. Plus, if I'm being honest, I was rushing the video because I wanted to get it out while the quest was still fresh in everyone's minds. So there are some things I just forgot to mention or didn't think of until later. Things like Asmodee couldn't have been the one to put the author of Vera's Melancholy here, because this was after they wrote Vera's Melancholy, which was published by Yai Publishing House, which wasn't founded until Yaimiko was an adult, and Yaimiko was a child during the Cataclysm, which is around the time Asmodee would have disappeared. Unless we're wrong about when Asmodee disappeared. Perhaps this lends credence to the idea that she didn't join the Twin until after they completed their journey through Teyvat. Or maybe her disappearance coincides with Traveler waking up at the start of the game. So anyway, I will put it into A tier. Now, I could wrap up the video by rating this very video. After all, why not? Well, why not is because if I rate it too low, it's like, why am I making a video that I would already rate as not good and then tell the people currently watching it that? But then if I rate it too high, it's like, well, yeah, if you're actually doing your best on the video in this moment, of course you think it's S tier right now. So since this video is only half about Genshin and half about my channel, I don't think there's a need to rate it on a Genshin video tier list. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. That takes care of the video tier list. But you know what? How about I rank my shorts too, since there's not that many. In the spirit of them being shorts, let's do it fast. My first short with Farina, A tier, because even though it's a highest tier meme, the editing was really half-assed. Beto short, C tier. It's kinda cliche and the finishing shot isn't as cool as it could have been if I had timed it better. Sorry and Mats, S tier. No notes. The reaction guide, potentially S tier, but I'm gonna knock it down because I did the thing where I put too much information on the screen, which works even less for a short than it does for long form. Mawika, B tier. I like the meme, but it's not as funny as others. Official Razor Sucrose, A tier. It's legit information, but nothing groundbreaking. Any meta player could tell you the same thing. And finally, the Celestial Nail short. I need to make a new tier, because this is the best short on the entire platform. What is this algorithm doing? Okay, that wraps up the main content of the 10K subscriber celebratory video. Pretty much a look back on the journey here, and hopefully, with the help of all of you who watch and engage, only the first step along the journey to come. I'll keep making videos for as long as I have ideas for them. But on the topic of plans for the future, as some of you may know, I occasionally stream some of the major quests, both on this channel and on Twitch. I mostly stream those quests here in order to record footage, since I don't have the storage space to keep all that footage myself. I recorded my Temple of Space questing instead of streaming it, and that one quest takes up 82 gigs. So not only will I keep streaming major quests, but I'm also considering the idea of starting a new Genshin account to stream and record all the older quests too, so I don't have to hunt through other people's videos when I need footage. I'd try to make it interesting and do something like a challenge account with no pulling, and hiding the UI as much as possible. Plus, it would serve as a refresher for me on all those quests, and I could view and comment on all of it in the context of the latest lore. But I present it here as a question, because I know YouTube doesn't distinguish between live streams and long-form video posts when it sends notifications to subscribers. So if notifications for live streams would just annoy people, maybe it's better if I stick to only streaming major quests. I feel like I have to mention that because my analytics has informed me that on a couple streams I actually lost subscribers, and not that many people even watch. That said, I know a few content creators set up a second YouTube channel just to stream on, so maybe that's the best option? Let me know in the comments if you have an opinion one way or the other. On that topic though, there's also Twitch. Twitch can't serve as a way to record footage since its quality is not that great, and they don't even allow streamers to save VODs anymore in any meaningful way. But there's also just streaming. As very few of you might know, I've actually tried my hand at live streaming multiple times since before Twitch.tv even existed, and maybe it's time to try again? This YouTube channel is pretty much dedicated to Genshin now, so anything I do stream here will be Genshin gameplay. But Twitch could be a different story. If there's other games that people would want to watch, I could stream them on Twitch. Now, I'm not committing to that right now, so I suppose the purpose of me saying this is just to let you all know that I do indeed have a Twitch channel that I already stream to occasionally. It's not currently partnered, but it is affiliate status, so if you guys are Twitch viewers, I'd appreciate any follows you send that way. And if I do start streaming, I would of course love anyone who wants to come hang out. But it's probably not productive to ramble on about maybes and potential plans for the future at the end of this video, so I'll leave it there. If I make any definitive plans on any of these fronts, I'll use the YouTube community posts feature to let everyone know. Thanks everyone who watched this little video about my channel, especially if you made it all the way to the end, and I hope you'll be along for the ride for my future content as well.